Okay, I'm gonna take you guys through the making of a market tote. I'm gonna be using a Turkish towel. I have this linked wherever you can find all of my links. I buy them in a 6-pack. So there's 2 pink and blue, 2 red and blue, and 2 teal and blue. This time we are gonna make, I call it the Seaside Tote. And I kind of made up this pattern myself. I don't have a pattern yet for it, but I'm hoping to get one on my website. But you can also pre-order these on my website. I'm gonna be making the medium size one. There's also a large size. So let's get started. Okay, I know some people wanted me to keep these tassels or use them somehow. I am not gonna do that just because I don't want to. So first I'm going to cut along this line right here just to cut this part off. I'm gonna do that on both ends of my towel. You can keep these and put them on however you want, but personally I have animals and hair and stuff gets wrapped up in those little knots and I don't like that. Okay, I'll cut off. Now I'm going to fold my towel completely in half, lining up the new cut edge. That is going to be the top of my bag, so that the pink is towards the bottom. And the nice thing about this is it's pretty easy to get straight lines because you have lines as your guides. I've got my outer panels cut to size. Now I'm going to be using this fusible fleece that I buy from Amazon in this big roll. And I'm going to iron this onto the back of my outer panels. And then I'm going to cut my inner panels a little bit differently. All right, so now that I have my 2 outer panels aligned, fusible fleece, I am going to go ahead and cut my inner lining fabric, which I get from Hobby Lobby. It's $7.99 a yard, and that's before you get the 30% off, which you should be doing. I am actually gonna cut this 2.5 inches taller than my outer pieces. So at the end, we can go through and add a lip onto the bag all around. We're actually doing a 3 inches taller for the panel. So here's my panel, and then here is my outer fabric that's behind it. Using some of the fabric that I have left over from the towel that I've already cut up, I cut 2 pieces of about 7.5 by 17 strips to make scrunchy pockets from. For my inside pocket, which is gonna go on my lining fabric, I just went through and folded in the edges and did a zigzag stitch just to seal up any frays. So this is the inside of the pocket. And then what I did was I left about 1 inch gap right here so that I can run elastic through it. So I'm gonna just take a little hair clippy and clip this in. Okay, I fed the elastic through and then I sewed it into the one corner. Now I'm just gonna scrunch this a little bit and kind of get it about the length that I would want the pockets to be on the inside. This is gonna be for 2 pockets because I'm gonna sew a line through the middle. And then I'm gonna go ahead and sew this before I cut my extra elastic. All right, this is my liner fabric and this is my outer fabric. And I laid it here to show you that I am gonna be boxing the corners of these. So the bottom of the tote is gonna sit roughly right here along this line right here. So that's gonna kind of help me position where my inner pocket is gonna be. So I'm just gonna kind of pin it down right here and I'm gonna sew it down right here and right here. And then I'm gonna go through and sort of fold these as I go and sew a line across the bottom. I'll try and show you a little bit of that. I've sewn in both edges of this. And then what I'm gonna do is, as I go through to sew the bottom of this pocket down, I'm gonna fold it as I sew. And I'm gonna try and keep it in a straight line. You can go through and pin all of this, but I just do it as I sew. And I just try and keep the bottom of the pocket in a straight line as I go. And I'm using a straight stitch. And I'll take my folds as I go along. Now I have a pocket. Now what I'm gonna do for this pocket, because it's kind of large and if it were to hold a bunch of stuff, it would sag. So I'm gonna take a straight stitch and just stitch straight up the middle of this to create 2 pockets. That way it won't sag as much. And now we have 2 pockets. Now we're gonna repeat that same step with our scrunchie pocket for the outside of the bag. And we are going to put it, just make sure that you leave enough room towards the bottom because you are gonna be boxing most of this pink, which will become the bottom. And then also leave some room at the top because we're gonna add straps that go up like this, but we're not going to take our straps quite to the very top. Okay, I've stitched both sides down. It's okay if this doesn't look perfectly straight because we're gonna add a strap right on top of this. And as long as your strap is straight, nobody's gonna see what's underneath here. But I'm gonna show you another angle of how I do my little pleats. So there are my pleats. I am using this for my straps. I love this. It goes with all of the colorways of this fabric. So I got this in a big roll on Amazon. I have everything linked that you need. So I'm gonna cut this to about 37 inches. And then we're gonna cut 2 of them the exact same length. You're gonna see these raw edges. So use a lighter and very carefully burn these edges down to stop any fraying. I always start with the pocket side of my outer lining. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack this down and sew it on just like this. So there's no measurements on this side, but then you're gonna wanna measure your other piece based off of how wide apart these are and how far down they go. I always sew from the bottom this way, that way I'm not pushing that way it starts where I want it to start and it doesn't push and go past where I want it to be, if that makes sense. And then secondly, I'm doing a straight stitch. So I did one here and I'm going all the way to this blue line, leaving myself a little extra room up here because we have to create a border. Sorry, you can't see. So we have to create a border up here. So I'm only stitching to the top of this blue line for all of my straps. And then I'm going to flip this and do a zigzag stitch going this way and then up here because I feel like that'll give it a little more support. I like to go over it a few times just to give it extra support and sort of lock in any edges down here. You can't even see where it is, but it's on there. So I already got the first strap done, and so I'm gonna lay my second panel on top like this, and then I'm going to tack down my straps based off of where those land. Okay, we've got both of our straps on. We are gonna put outer right side to right side together like this. No liner yet. And then we are going to match up our sides and we're gonna sew down this side, all the way down the bottom and down the other side. You're gonna leave the top open. Make sure your straps are out of your way. Also, a tip is to make sure you line up your stripes so that when you flip the bag right side out, your stripes line up. I mean, it's okay if it doesn't happen that way for you. I am doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way down. So we sewed all 3 sides of our bag. Now we are gonna box our corners. We're not gonna cut, we're just gonna box them and we're gonna leave the corners there. So what you're gonna do is take one of your corners, here's the bag, take one of your bottom corners and you're going to push out that corner and flatten it like this, all right? Now, the trick is to make sure this seam lines up with this seam. So as long as they're stacked on top of each other, your bag is gonna look straight if you sew your corner straight. So I'm gonna show you a little trick that I do on my sewing machine to help me get my corners the exact same. I wanna box out my corners about 2.5 inches and I want them all to be exactly the same. So if you can see here, you see my 2.5 inch mark is right here based off of my needle. All right, and I'm doing a straight stitch for this. So I'm gonna take a little piece of washi tape. I'm gonna place this strip of washi tape right at about 2.5 inches. Let me just make sure again. 2.5 inches exactly. And so I'm gonna take my corner and the point of it is right here. And I'm gonna run my corner along this washi tape and to give me a straight line right here. You can map this out and draw a line if you want. I just tend to do this, it's quick for me. Make sure my 2 seams are stacked on top of each other and you can box out as deep as you want. I'm doing it like this because I want a little bit of this pink to show on the bottom of the bag if you're holding the bag up. There. And because we're going to be doing the liner the same way and then we're going to drop the liner inside, I'm not even going to cut this off. I want that bulk to stay down there to give the bag a little more structure on the bottom. But typically if you're doing like a smaller makeup bag, you would just cut this off at this point. Now we're going to repeat the same steps with the liner fabric. Now remember, your liner fabric is going to have extra room at the top. And we're going to do with that afterwards. So we're gonna sew our 3 edges just like we did the outer fabric. This step, your pocket is pointed up towards the top because you don't want to sew your pocket upside down. Ask me how I know. Liner sewn all together. Now I'm gonna box out the corners using the exact same method I did for the outer fabric. Now we're gonna flip everything right side out. So go ahead and push out your corners. Look how pretty that is. And then, all right, and then taking your inner fabric, leaving it the way it was so it is wrong side out, you're gonna stick it inside your bag. I'm putting my inside pockets opposite of my outside pockets, just to kind of balance the weight of the bag. While you're doing this, you're gonna wanna line up your side seams. So here's your bag. Line up your side seam of this one. I kind of just fold it over on itself, and then I'm gonna clip it just while I work the rest of the bag together. My other side seam, just clip it. This is where we are right now. All right, our last step right here is to double fold this and sew it over the edge. You can take an iron if it's gonna help you, but I'm gonna show you up close what I do, and then you can do it however you want. So if we were to go around and sew it just like this, we would have this raw edge. So what we're gonna do is double fold this. So I'm gonna keep it all out for now. We wanna make sure our side seams are together, and I'm gonna give it a small fold, and then I'm gonna fold it once more over the edge, and I'm gonna clip it. And then I'm gonna go through and fold again all the way through using my blue as a guide right here. I'm gonna Now you're just gonna go through and sew a top stitch right around this edge. And we're all done. Look how nice that looks. I put my logo on there, front pocket, here's the back, here's the inside. I just love it. So cute. I mean, you can do longer handles if you wanted to. But honestly, when I'm standing and I'm holding my bag down straight, I don't want it to drag the ground. So that's kind of how I measure, but I'm short. All right, I hope this tutorial helped you. Stay tuned because I'm going to be releasing a pattern for this specific bag in the larger size one very soon. Okay, bye.